Georgetown this week, making her case for women in power positions as we get closer to a possible 2016 announcement. There's some speculation that may be pushed off a little bit later than January, but she was raising some eyebrows with some of what she said during this Georgetown speech. Clinton saying that women can be, quote, agents of peace and change, but should sympathize with the enemy to a certain extent to do it. Here's what she said.
This is what we call smart power, using every possible tool and partner to advance peace and security, leaving no one on the sidelines, showing respect even for one's enemies, trying to understand and, insofar as psychologically possible, empathize with their perspective and point of view.
Joined now by Karl Rove. He is the former White House Deputy Chief of Staff, of course, and senior advisor to President George W. Bush, and a Fox News contributor. Karl, good morning to you.
Morning, Martha.
So she's getting a lot of heat for this statement. It's something she's talked about for a long time, smart power, but she certainly raises the profile of this discussion because there's a lot of speculation that she's going to run for president.
Yeah, well, look, she's been talking about this for a long time, but this speech was badly written, badly delivered, and is going to continue to cause her problems. There are three challenges with this speech. The first one was the respect. The word respect means to feel or show deferential regard for, admire, or esteem. So we're supposed to look at our adversaries like Vladimir Putin or ISIS and have a deferential regard for them and admire them. Worse was the next phrase where she said we need to empathize with their perspective and their point of view. Now, empathy is the ability to get inside, one person to imagine themselves as somebody else, to get inside their shoes. So we're supposed to look at ISIS and say, look, we empathize with you. We understand why you feel compelled to behead American citizens. We look at Vladimir Putin and say, we understand that you're upset that you're no longer the Soviet empire, that you aren't even the Russian empire of the 19th century, and that's why you're taking Crimea and destabilizing the Ukraine.
Let me play the other side of this for a second, Karl, because, I would imagine that she would say that she's talking about appealing to the cultures, the societies, and not the leaders in these situations, and that in many cases our hope is that while you want to speak softly and carry a big stick in many of these situations, you want to hit them with a lot of firepower, but you also want to convince the people on the ground in many of these nations that they want different leadership, that this is not the leadership that they want.
Good point, Martha. She should have said that rather than saying, quote, empathize with their perspectives and point of view. I mean, the language that she used was inappropriate. What you just said is exactly right. If she had started off rather than saying to respect our adversaries, if she had said we need to understand their capabilities, we need to understand what motivates them, we need to understand what their abilities are in order to deal with them effectively, that would have been appropriate. But to say we need to respect them, show deferential regard for and admire them was the wrong language. And look, there was one other bit of language in here that was, from my perspective, problematic. This implication, not an implication, she was explicit about it. She talked about how in the Philippines that until they put a woman in charge of negotiations with the jihadists in the south of the country, the moral liberationists, that the negotiations were going nowhere. And she said we need to have women more involved in conflict resolution and military efforts because they're better able to solve these problems. Well, I thought this is crude sexism. Does she really believe that there are jobs in government that women are better than men at? If so, then she needs to tell us what job she thinks men are inherently better than women at in government. This is crude sexism. I understand why she did it. She's trying to appeal by saying I'm going to be the first woman president.
Women. I mean, it's also the audience, I would imagine, that came into play in that. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, you want the best person for the job, and the fact that these people who were able to broker this deal in the Philippines happen to be women is less relevant than the fact that they were successful. Correct?
Right. Correct.
All right. So, the other thing that strikes me is that when you look at the polls, people are in favor generally of us being more powerful against ISIS. They feel that the president hasn't been strong enough on this issue. So I wonder, in terms of the electorate, who she's appealing to with this.
Look, she's appealing to the hard left of the Democratic Party. But she's creating a general election problem for herself and making it more difficult for herself to put distance between she and President Obama. Remember, she's going to be running, if she runs, in 2015 and 2016. Yeah. Who thinks that America's foreign policy is going to be more successful over the next 2 years at dealing with ISIS, at dealing with Putin, at dealing with the various challenges we have around the world, and by, in essence, mimicking, echoing the president's lines with regard to our adversaries and our enemies? She's going to make it more difficult for herself to differentiate.
She may be positioning herself
from them.
There are many on the left who think she's too hawkish, and she may be trying to soften that tone a little bit to reach out to them.
Absolutely.
So that may be, but there's no doubt that we're going to see these quotes come back to her in a debate environment, and we can already sort of imagine that they are logging the tape for that in the future. One quick thing. This came out from one of the Hillary PACs, an independent group. There's no campaign as of yet, but I want you to take a look at it, and I wanted to get your reaction. I wasn't sure if it was serious at first, but apparently it is. Let's roll it.
That's the country and my family. Now it's time for us to stand up with Hillary.
At one point they say, she's like your wife. See that nice lady in the picture there in the family? He sits back and looks at his wife and says, she's like your wife. I mean, why wouldn't you want to elect her president of the United States?
Well, interestingly enough, in the film, you get the implication that he met his wife when he ran out of gas and she showed up on a motorcycle. So, look, a national reporter emailed me the link and said the gossip was that I was somehow behind this as a diabolical plot.
I think maybe, were you? Let's answer that question right here.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying.
You'd like to take credit for it at this point, I bet.
Oh, I got to tell you, I wish I could. It is one of the most abysmal pieces.
It's really...
If they were trying to advocate for Hillary, they couldn't figure out a worse way to do it.
I wasn't sure if it was a Saturday Night Live skit at first or whether it was something real, but apparently it is. So, we'll see.
Good production values.
All right. Yep. They got some free airtime right here from us today, so be that as it may.
You bet.
Carl, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
You bet.